Alabama. So we're now joined by Pat Nunley, broadcast analyst for Baylor Radio, Baylor men's basketball, former Baylor guard on Sic'Em 365 Radio with David Smoke and also Craig Smoke. Pat, thank you very much for your time. There's no surprise. LJ is not playing. And is it almost to a point where the surprise would be if he did?
Yes, absolutely. And I think they've been counting on him not playing for a while. And if he's a no-go in the tournament, that just confirms what they've been thinking. And really, David, this is their team. I mean, they reconfigured the team. You and I've talked about that. This is the team they're going with. And this is a team that won, I believe it was 5 of 6 to finish Big 12 play. They won key games, big games down the stretch to give themselves a share of the Big 12 championship. And so this is what they're going with, and it's a good roster.
Pat, since the loss of JTT, we were just talking about this a little while ago, what have you seen as far as the growth of Flo Thamba, especially offensively?
Yeah, it's just off the charts. And really, he's played better than I think he's ever played as a Baylor Bear. You know, since he's gone out, he's averaging 10.5 points a game. He's averaging 8.1 rebounds per game, almost a block and a half a game, and he's playing 29 minutes per game. So in my mind, he has been the key because that was a big unknown. When JTT goes out, that is a big hole to fill. And I've mentioned before, those two guys were playing that position by committee, and Flo had to carry the weight, and he's done it incredibly well. He has been outstanding, and I think he's a key cog in the wheel, getting us where we are now and then moving forward. He's going to play a big role.
Pat, I had this comment to myself, and I might have texted Paul, who was at the game against Kansas when Flo had 18 and was unbelievable inside with his pick and roll and also hitting even some of the smaller jumpers. But I never thought he was – when he got like a third foul, I said, I never thought of what you might miss offensively if Flo Thamba got in foul trouble. But they now would miss him somewhat offensively too.
Yeah, that's a strange thought, but it is the truth. And I think and this applies to a couple of different players as well, really all of them, because we just can't get into foul trouble. I think the more fouls Flo gets, the smarter he becomes, because he's figured out a way to play effectively when he's got 3 fouls or when he's got 4 fouls. And so he's been very effective at staying in games when we've absolutely had to have him, but he just cannot afford any more fouls. And that might be the most impressive thing about what he's been able to do, because 29 minutes a game is a lot more than he ever expected to play. Got to play more minutes, and he has to be dominant the way he has been. And to do that, he's in the fray. I mean, that guy has more offensive rebounds than he does defensive rebounds. And to be able to do that, you've got to go get the ball. And you've got to get in the fray, and you've got to be physical. You got to throw guys around. So his ability to avoid fouling out has been really impressive.
Pat, yesterday, Smokey asked the question to me and Paul about, what player on this team needs to step up the most, and not step up of like they haven't been playing well, but just in terms of need to probably do a bit more, maybe have a bit more of a scoring explosion. And both Paul and I pretty quickly said Matthew Meyer. Who would you say?
That's a really good question. And now that you say that, Craig, I think probably Meyer would get my vote. But my short answer to that question would be all of them, because we just don't have room for error. We don't. If Adam Flagler goes 1 for 11 like he did against Oklahoma, and that happens, it just happens to the very best shooters. And he was statistically the best 3-point shooter in the league. If he goes 1 for 11 in any of the upcoming, hopefully 6 games, we're going to really struggle. So I think each one of them has to bring to the table what they have brought to the table over the last month. But if I had to pick a guy, it would be Meyer. Meyer has been great in the NCAA tournament. A year ago, second-round game against Wisconsin, he scored 17 in that game off the bench in about 20 minutes. And I don't know that we win that game without Matt Meyer. So this is not unfamiliar to him. I think he's up for the challenge. I think he likes this tournament. I don't know that he really has to shoot the ball well, because he hasn't shot the ball well. We've played well in spite of that. The other things that he does, and a lot of those things that he's doing that don't show up in the box score, are the kind of things that Matt Meyer has to continue to bring. He's become a really good defender. He's incredibly active. He's very athletic. He's 6'9", got a long wingspan. He does a lot. He gets deflections. He takes charges. A lot of those things that are disruptive. So without scoring, he's got to continue to do that, and I think he will.
Pat, how much would you is he someone we know he can shoot, and again, as you mentioned, he hadn't been shooting at a great percentage, but he has a few putbacks, which are because of his size, and they need more of him. Would you like to see him maybe continue drives more often and keep getting bumped and maybe trying to draw a foul?
Absolutely. You know, I heard somebody say this, some commentator watching a game, I guess it was last week, and this guy was talking about me shots versus we shots. And I thought that was really astute, and I think that applies to Matt. Don't take me shots, take we shots. You know, shots early in a possession where we really haven't explored things in our offensive sets are the kind of shots that I think Matt has an inclination to take because he's a big game kind of guy. You know, if he makes one of those threes and he's made more than his fair share, it tends to really ignite the team and at home ignite a crowd. He's got to continue to get the ball in the lane because when he's there, he is a handful. He really is. Now, he's not a great free throw shooter, but he's the kind of guy that could get on a roll and make some. That, I think, is the key. He's great on the offensive glass. So less me shots, more we shots. And the we shots are those that happen when he gets the ball into the lane and dishes or scores at the rim.
Pat, what are your thoughts on what you have seen? Not sure what you have checked out yet on Norfolk State.
Well, it's interesting. As I've looked at them, Craig, you guys might remember in 2012, they got into the tournament as a 15 seed. They beat the number 2 seed, Missouri. And that was a huge upset. That really was a game changer for that program. And listening to their coach talk, he said last year they got into the NCAA tournament, played Gonzaga, and just were run out of the gym. And he felt like they needed to get more physical. They needed to get bigger and stronger and more athletic. So he's tried to build that team around that goal, and he's done it. They've got a really nice player named Chris Bankston. He's a transfer from Little Rock, 6'8", 230. He's their leading rebounder, and he's a big dude, and he can play. He's an athlete. So they don't want – well, I'll put it this way. He didn't feel like they were NCAA tournament ready a year ago, and everything they've done this year has been built to get ready to play a game like they're going to play tomorrow. He said, you know, coming in, they're going to be a 16, 15, or best case 14 seed, and they're going to get the best that the tournament has to offer right off the bat, and they just have to be ready for that. But they're talented. They're balanced. They've got a guard, was the player of the year in the MEAC, Joe Bryant, 6'1", 17 points, 5 rebounds. This guy has made, this is interesting, 127 of the 138 free throw attempts he's taken this year. He's a 92% free throw shooter, and he gets there a lot. So they've got a nice team. They're well balanced. He feels like they're built better for this tournament and for Baylor than they were previously last year. It's their second year in the NCAA tournament, and this is what they play for. You win your tournament, you go to the NCAA tournament. They won their conference tournament second year in a row to do that, and they're in. So this is the big dance for these guys.
Yeah, and Bryant's a thick kid, too. I mean, he looks like he can handle the bumps and grind and all that if it gets physical and along with what you said inside. So it ought to be fun. How much does it help anytime? I know the women get to play home for the first weekend among other schools around the country for helping with attendance and whatever else and even budget. How much does it help to be only 80, 90 miles away?
I think it's huge. I really do, because our crowds have been off the charts good, really, this year. You think of the Kansas game, the Iowa State game, others that we had to win, and we really could increase our chances by having a strong, vocal, active home crowd. I think we're going to get that in Fort Worth. Now, tomorrow's a 1 o'clock start, so I don't know how many people are going to be able to get there. But Dallas and Fort Worth is a hotbed for Baylor alums, and I think they're coming. I hope they get there tomorrow. Baylor can advance and play Saturday, you're going to see a lot of green and gold in the stands. You remember the Baylor-Duke game?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but that was 70,000 people, and I think 40,000 of those were probably Baylor fans in Houston that year. It makes a huge difference. So, and actually, that's what they've been playing for. I think they've been more concerned about getting to Fort Worth than they have about the 1-2 seed thing. Now, 1 seed gets them to Fort Worth, and it all worked out really well. But they had Fort Worth circled on their brackets, and this is where they want to be.
Pat, we were talking to Mac Rhodes yesterday, and Paul asked him about the bubble setup from last year and whether or not he would be interested in sort of a hybrid concept where you have, the still scattered locations in the first couple of rounds, but then you go to more of a, not a bubble, but everybody's kind of in that same location for the Sweet 16 and beyond. And Mac said he'd be open to thinking about the idea. He wouldn't sign off on it like immediately, but one thing that he does like about it is just the camaraderie that was built during that bubble time last year, interacting with all the various coaches and players from other teams around the country. Just what are your thoughts on that concept?
Yeah, I thought last year was pretty interesting. It was weird because we had less camaraderie than more. I mean, me and J-Mo for that matter. But I just thought it was strange. There were some benefits to it. Everybody was right there. You knew where you were going the next weekend, and that was kind of nice. But maybe I'm just a purist. I like the way the tournament's set up now. Mm-hmm. It is, as it stands now, it is a national event.
Right.
It is, in my mind, it's as big as the Super Bowl. I really think. I saw something the other day that said 85% of the NCAA's budget is made off of this tournament. It's incredible.
Yeah.
So I like the way it is now. It's a national spectacle. Everybody across the country is doing brackets, and I think it's cool. I also think that 1 seeds, 2 seeds, but primarily 1, because that's where we are this year, get the benefit of having earned a 1 seed for us playing in Fort Worth. Now, I don't know how much of that goes into the committee's decision making, but I like the fact that we were rewarded with a 1 seed, which has us playing 90 miles up the road.
Pat, one more thing on the crowd. With Baylor being right here, Fort Worth being 90 miles away, and Baylor have a huge alumni group in the Dallas and Fort Worth area, you also have, even though there's a couple of different sessions, North Carolina, Kansas. Mm-hmm. We know Marquette has their great history as well. Does that's pretty. It's like the blue blood division.
Kentucky.
Oh my God! How do I forget Kentucky? For God's sakes! But as far as in Fort Worth to have North Carolina and Kansas, that's got to be huge.
It is huge. It's the who's who of college basketball. When you think about it, it's Kentucky, UCLA. Those 2 teams have more national titles than any other team playing in the tournament. In North Carolina, you mentioned them. Indiana. You've got other teams in there that year in, year out are great. So it's a great weekend for college basketball to come see some of the best. And by the way, I think, and this is probably by design, I think the East Regional is the hardest one to predict. And it should be that way. I mean, the 4th number 1 seed ought to have to play the best 2 seed or be in the same bracket as the best 2 seed and on and on. So it's been set up that way, and I love it. But I think Baylor can get out of it. Well, of course they can. They've got some work to do. Kentucky, despite having lost last week, is playing really well. North Carolina has been one of the best teams in the country for about a month or so. So, again, and everybody has stubbed their toe, and I think that's just the way college basketball is this year. But it's a great regional, and we're going to see some great basketball beginning tomorrow.
Thank you, Pat. Appreciate it. We'll see you in Fort Worth. Pat Nunley, color analyst, Baylor men's basketball, former Baylor guard with us, and it's great to have him on and his ability to dissect things and his opinion on various parts of also what's going on as well. 3:45 is the time. Couple of notes. It was a really